Hello, Nikki. Thank you so much for sitting down with us for one of the Pylon's first ever Pylon profiles. Without further ado,
Well, thank you. Yeah.
you've been named the Princess of Black Poetry. You have had over 20 honorary doctorates. Oprah has named you one of 25 living legends. Your accolades over the years have just piled up. How did it start? What was the driving force behind Nikki Giovanni?
I came up, of course, in the 60s. So my generation was a generation that thought we should change the world. I think we did a pretty good job, frankly speaking. I think that we made people aware that there's a little bit more to life than just getting a job and getting a paycheck and getting married and moving to the suburbs. I think that we opened up some doors, and I think some people have benefited. I know that America has benefited from it. One of the things that was important was civil rights, that separate is inherently unequal. So my generation is going to be the generation that's going to fight about that. And I think that we did a good job of helping America to understand that that's that was 200 years ago. It's time to do something else now.
When you started your career, you started off at Ohio State. So what then led you to Virginia Tech?
Well, like any writer, you take a job here or there, because somebody says, well, come in and teach your course. So I didn't actually, this Virginia Tech is my first job. This was a real job, because you go and you teach for a couple of weeks or you teach for 6 weeks or something like that. I taught at Ohio State. I taught at Fisk for a while. It's my institution. I taught at Rutgers. You just, because you do that, you got a family, you earn a living. But I was invited to come to Tech, and of course I'm a Knoxvillian by birth. I'm an Appalachian by birth, and my affection for our area, was right there. So coming here was like being at home.
You've been teaching since 1984 for about 31 years now. Have your thoughts on teaching changed over the years, or what do you set out to do when you have a classroom full of Hokies?
Well, I think if you went back to my first class or my class 5 years or 10 years, we're going to all have some different things because I'm working on different things. And right now, because I'm a writer more than I am anything else, I'm trying to share what it is that excites me. But it's important, and even in my not even, but in my poetry, I've begun to look at what is the relationship here. I was a history major at Fisk University. So I looked at, of course, civil rights. I looked at the Civil War. I looked at the South because I'm a Southerner. And so as you start to think about that, you think, well, we are missing something. And there's a story about who we are here that has not been told. And so somebody like me just opens doors and open doors. And that's what the kids are hearing from me now. And I think I want them to think about where we are and what, I don't want them to just fall into the habit of this is what we've heard.
What issue on campus is most important to you right
now? Probably, really, we are growing. And I mean no disrespect to Dr. Sands and the new administration, but I think we have to be careful that we don't grow so quickly that we don't get to know each other. Because one of the things that happened when I came here, 30 years ago, you could get to know each other. You could go over and have lunch, and you could get to meet people. You could get to know your students, And we keep bringing 1,000 students, 500 students in every semester. We're not going to know each other. You want your people to know your people so that we can all call on each other. We can all celebrate with each other. We can all feel like we know each other. And that's an issue.
Now we're going to shift into some questions about some stories that your students come out of class with. Firstly, you have a tattoo on your arm that your former students like to bring up. What is it, and why did you decide to get it?
My tattoo says Thug Life. I don't know if you can see it. I got it because, of course, I'm a fan of Tupac Shakur. And Tupac was shot on a Monday, and he died on a Thursday. And it was just incredibly sad to me because Tupac Shakur is the same age as my son. And he didn't have to be. I would have felt badly about it anyway. But losing a talent like that, and of course it was Tupac that did Vote or Die, and it was Tupac that was helping his generation to understand some of their responsibility. I didn't know his mother a penny. But I thought we should, as one mother to another, I wanted to say to her, we too mourn the loss of your son. So I decided to put it on my arm, and I'm right-handed, so I put it on the left arm so I could see it. And so I went in, and so you can see a little old black lady walking into a tattoo parlor, and so everybody's kind of looking at me, and everybody's nice, you know. They're, yeah, can we help you? And I said, I need a tattoo, please. He's got a wall. He said, well, you know, pick one. I said, I don't think you have it. And he said, well, what do you need? I said, Thug Life. And his name, Alex is his son. His name is Charles. And Charles said, you don't look like a thug. And I said, yes, I'm a thug. But I just couldn't let that child die without trying to make a statement.
You have a bat named after you, the Micronycteris Giovanni. I think that's how it's pronounced. What were your thoughts when you were told someone wanted to name a bat after you?
Well, there's Dr. King, and there's the bat there. And when Dr. King called, he called me actually here and said, you know, he had discovered a bat. You know, so you're on the phone talking to somebody, you don't know if it's a hoax, you don't know what's going on. And I'm like, okay, Dr. King. He said, I'd like to name it. Would that be okay with you? And I was like, yeah, sure. He said, it's got big ears, and you remind me of someone because you listen, which I do. And he said, so remind you of you. And I said, well, what do I have to do? He said, well, he's in Texas. He said, you have to come to the university. I said, I'm on my way. The thing that I enjoy is Toni Morrison is a friend of mine. And I truly adore Toni. I mean, I've known Toni forever. And my bat came up the year that Toni won the Nobel. And whomever, right now, I can't remember who, one of the Washington Post or somebody was doing an article on Toni, and they called me for a comment, you know, because I adore Toni, and she's one of the brilliant writers in the world, you know. And I said, you know, I'm really so pleased, and I was, about her Nobel, and, you know, the yakety yak. I said, but, you know, in all fairness, a lot of people have a Nobel, but I have a bat, and very few people have a bat. Oh, Tony's like, oh, you're kidding, but very few people have a bat named after him.
Well, our last question now is taking it back a few years. One thing that we all want to know more about is how apparently Morgan Freeman owes you a car, and how does something like that happen?
Morgan was my next door neighbor. He was just beginning his acting career. I traveled a lot, but he had to go down to the village. So I was going, I don't know right now, so I was going someplace, and Morgan needed to go there, and he would borrow my car. And I said to Morgan, well, I'm going to be gone for a couple of days. You take the car, and, you know, just bring it back and park it. Well, he got a call from, I think, the Cleveland Playhouse now, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, he did what actors do. He left. But in New York, as you may or may not know, you have to move the car from one side of the street to the other. So the car wasn't moved, right? And so it got towed. By the time I got back to New York, my car is gone. It's a little Volkswagen. He's still in Cleveland. So it's like, Morgan, you know, the car got towed. And he's like, I don't have any, you know, I don't have any money. Well, I didn't have any money either. It was cheaper for me to do what I did, which is buy a new car. But I said, Morgan, you owe me a car. And we were, you know, we used to laugh about it. But then he became Morgan Freeman as we know it. And I ran into Morgan in L.A., and I ran into his granddaughter at this point, you know, because it's been a while. But I ran into his granddaughter, and she was talking, you know, she's the nicest kid in the world. I said, you know, your granddaddy owes me a car. And she said, really? I said, yeah, he got my car towed away and it was gone. And she, Granddaddy, Nikki said you owe her a car. He said, I don't owe that girl a car. I said, your granddaddy's lying. He owes me a car.
Well, we've really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us, Nikki.
It's my pleasure, and good luck with the magazine. And yeah, anything that my writers, I have good writers too, and I will be talking to them about it.